Let's get it started. So, welcome everyone. Thanks so much for making time for today. I'm Johnny Harris from DSN Software, and I'm joined by Dr. Sam McCurry, a practicing periodontist, and Cassidy Kels from Weave. So, today we're going to walk through 6 things we see top performing specialty practices doing to keep their chairs full and their schedules running tight. Quick housekeeping, we're going to save the Q&A for the end, so drop your questions in the chat as we go, and we'll get to as many as we can. And as a reminder, we're going to send out the session recording after this, so if anyone missed the start, not a problem. Okay, so here's what we're going to cover in the next 30 minutes. We're first going to start with the scope of the problem, and then we're going to dig into why specialty practices face a harder version of it than general dentistry. So the core of the session is 6 specific strategies with real workflows you can take back to your practice this week. And then Sam will share some actual results and we'll open it up for a Q&A. All right, so Sam, let's start with the reality. What did the no-show problem look like in your practice before you made the changes of bringing Weave in with DSN?
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Per- Perfect. So thank you for the kind invitation. I have been practicing dentistry for over 20 years. And without the advancement of technology, we were consistently dealing with a lot of last minute cancellation and no-shows. And one of the things that blow my mind is what is the cost of an hour of chair time? So one thing every practice should do is there is like a break even point, which is basically the cost of doing business every day. You turn the light, open the doors, there's a cost per hour. We have a bigger practice. There's 25 employees and 3 doctors. So every hour costs us, with about $2,000. So if I have a surgery that is 3 hour surgery that cancels last minute, I lost $6,000 on that day. By looking at this and on a month that if you do 4 days a week, that's 16 days. If you have 2 doctors, that's 32 days, doctor days by 8 hours a day. You multiply that and you see, like in my practice, it's over $300,000 to break even. So when we lose, consistently 1, 2 surgeries, sometimes 3 a week, you're talking about a good $20,000 to $25,000 of lost revenue every month without the ability to confirm the patients using all the technologies that we have. And then, I will also dig deep later into the other parts that's involved with it. But if you look outside of the number, I encourage every single provider, regardless of what business you are in, like if you are a general dentist, specialist, you have to know your break-even point, the cost of an hour, to start realizing what it actually costs you to have an empty chair for an hour.
Yep. Thank you very much for that. And yeah, so for most specialty practices that we work with, the number, it lands somewhere between $15,000 and $25,000 a month in lost production. Your clinical team is tied up, with things like notes, and at the same time, your front desk is stuck reacting to cancellations instead of staying ahead of them. That's where the breakdown typically happens, and why empty chairs persist. There's no system in place to consistently confirm patients, fill last minute gaps, or free up time on the clinical side. So the schedule never really gets ahead.
It's
So yeah,
sorry, it's basically there is a lot of factors that you put together when you look into this, because so a lot of times, like I'm periodontics, we do a lot of surgeries, and a lot of our
mhm,
patients are sedated. So we have an arrangement with anesthesia, group to come into our office, and they charge 1,000 to 1,500 per case to come in. And when there's a last minute cancellation, probably the first time they were not going to charge you, but the second time they will charge you, and the third time they're not going to show up again. And good luck trying to find a group that schedule the surgery with you. So those are really important things. I joke with my staff. I tell them like, and this is true in the last 12 years that I have been practicing in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I never had a sick day. Never. Because even when I'm sick, I show up. Why? Because I think of all these factors. There is an anesthesia company coming. Patient is sedated. They took a day off. They have a driver who took a day off to come and drive them. So all these things, you put it together, and then a lot of our patients are elderly, and the chance that they gonna forget the exact day, there's a lot of times people show up either a day early or a day late to their procedure. So these reminders actually not only help the no-show, it's actually help to get the people on the fence, because also it help us, significantly improve our collections, because you get people that, you send them a reminder, they didn't respond to it, that
Hmm.
we have a system in place. There is a reminder, there is a text message, there is an email, and then a phone call. And the fifth one is me calling them personally. So without having the computer system to do all these things, we're going to find out all these things like about 10 minutes before surgery. So you
Yeah,
are avoiding a lot of unfortunate events that can happen the day and can ruin your day and your staff day by implementing technology that can reduce that and completely eliminate that part of stress.
agreed. Thank you very much for that, Dr. McCurry. And yeah, so I think this is the part that gets missed in most no-show conversations. So most of the advice you see online is it's built for general dentistry, where appointments are shorter and you might be able to squeeze someone else in. And in a specialty practice, a single no-show, it can wipe out a 60 to 90-minute surgical block. You've got a doctor, assistants, a room allocated for that procedure, and all these things prepared ahead of time. And when the patient doesn't show or you miss that, you can't fill it with a hygiene appointment or a quick procedure. So yeah, the revenue impact per no show is significantly higher in your case. But what's overlooked is everything around it, right? So your team still shows up, your overhead doesn't change, and now your front desk is scrambling. So while no shows are frustrating in any practice and specialty setting, they're far more disruptive financially and operationally.
So the American Dental Association just released the beginning of this year, actually, data that shows the biggest challenges that dental practices are facing. And the number one challenge was shortage of staff, assistants, and hygienists. And the second biggest challenge that dental offices are facing are cancellations with less than 24-hour notice.
Mhm.
And if so, from the specialty part, that's the biggest challenge, which is detrimental. And also from hygiene, because you have to think about it. Patients sit down, making a hygiene appointment 6 months ahead. A lot of things going to change on these 6 months. You're
Mhm.
counting on them having this in their calendar. People lose their phones, update their phones, change their phones. So that's why we always try to have a month reminder, a 2 weeks reminder, and a 3 days reminder. And that also help us because you may think about it, okay, it's a hygiene hour, and that's like, let's say, average $200, 250, the hygiene visit. But there's
Mhm.
also like dental treatment that are going to be scheduled out of the hygiene chair. So this
Mhm.
patient is coming for a hygiene visit and he's missing a tooth, and you were planning on talking to them about getting a dental implant. So
Mhm.
by not having a reminder, you not only lost that $200 revenue of the hygiene hour, you also lost a couple $1,000 from that implant that was supposed to come out of it too.
Yeah, and life happens, right? So every person isn't walking around thinking about their next dental appointment. Life happens with kids, family, work, vacation, and sometimes that one reminder call personally a week before, a few days before isn't enough. Just those multiple touch points to say stop of mind to stay top of mind when the patient has a second are imperative. Okay, so that's the problem. Now, let's talk about what the highest performing practices are actually doing about it. So, we've studied the patterns across hundreds of specialty practices, and typically what we found is it comes down to six key things. They're not theoretical. Sam uses them in his practice, and Cassidy sees the data across the Weave platform. So let's get into it.
Awesome. Yeah. So oftentimes we see the front desk is, buried in their day-to-day tasks, trying to play phone tag with patients who typically aren't answering because, like we were just talking about, they're busy. The last thing that they're worried about is their next dental visit. So implementing a tech stack like DSN and Weave is a simple way to stop relying on manual phone calls and outreach, and free up the staff to do the more important things, which, is patient care. We're seeing that our top offices have reduced no-shows with up to 40% in some cases as a result of using some automated workflows through the Weave platform in conjunction with DSN. So for instance, with features like smart confirmations, we're moving to more of a two-way conversation where the patient can actually text, email the practice back directly to confirm their appointments and ask any related questions. This is an automated confirmation as well that will change the status in DSN for the staff, also eliminating that specific manual process. We also have the ability to meet patients where they are. So in our busy lives, maybe we're not able to check our email often or answer a phone call or a text message. So having the ability to send out personalized communications via text, email, and voice on whatever cadence and whatever number of messages, time of day, things like that that we want. We really unlock the true power of automating these workflows, catching the patients where they are, and making sure that they're not going unaware of their upcoming appointment. So kind of to piggyback off of what Dr. Bakuri was saying earlier is, what happens if someone loses their phone or, just completely blanks? We're able to kind of communicate on whatever cadence we want. So, Sam, I know that you utilize Weave and DSN together and a lot of the automated workflows with confirmations and reminders. So I'd love to hear a little bit about what's working for you, what you like about it, some of your personal experience within your practice, with
Thank you. So we've been using Weave for about 8 years, and I actually start lecturing about the missed calls in offices, and not only dental offices, medical offices, vet offices. And one thing that really amazes me is the difference it make when we start implementing having the ability to text patients. So basically, when someone calls the office, if the call goes abandoned or goes to a missed call, they automatically get a text message saying, "Hey, this is so and so from Dr. Sam Bakuri's office. Sorry, I'm on the other line. I can call you in 2 minutes, or you can text me here." Or the confirmation with text message, because there is a fact that you have to be aware of. Millennials have overtaken popular culture. You like it, you don't like it, that's reality. You have to live with it. And this generation, if you're younger than them or older than them, they don't like talking on the phone. They like texting. And there is some social boundaries. This is way of living. This is the new reality. It's way easier for these people to actually text than talking. So it makes a huge difference that you have the ability to have a text confirmation.
Yeah, it's the social media generation now. I think everyone just wants things quick, fast.
Yeah. Hate to say it, but I'm guilty of it too. So
I do enjoy a good phone call back and forward and, an excuse for a yap, but I guess maybe that's just me. Or maybe showing my age a little bit.
yeah, it's growing less and less frequent, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Okay. So, number two. So keep every chair filled even when patients don't show up. So most practices pack their schedule as tightly as possible and then scramble when someone cancels. The best run practices do it slightly differently. They build their schedule knowing cancellations are going to happen. So that might look like strategic overbooking, not double booking surgeries, but if you know certain times like Monday mornings, Friday afternoons tend to have a higher no-show rate, you can layer in an extra consult or follow up where history tells you you'll likely have a gap. That way, if a procedure cancels, you can still schedule something in, you can realistically still fill it. And then there's speed. The faster you can react to an opening, the more likely you are to fill it. That's where the automated wait lists really come in. Patients can be notified instantly when something opens up instead of relying on your team to make calls. Dr. Bakuri, have you been taking advantage of the automated wait lists?
Absolutely. We strategize the patients, asking them like, because we have, appointments. Luckily we're booked about 3 months out. So we have people who are willing to come in soon on a short notice, and they tell us like, hey, I'm retired. Give me 10 minutes, I'll make it. So we create lists based on, the urgency. And then before, what we used to do is we used to call every single one. So by the time you're on the third person, the front desk is already tired, and she is like down because everyone, either she doesn't get hold of them or cannot make the appointment. Now within a minute, we have a text message sent and people thumbs up responded and the appointment already taken. So it actually significantly help us reduce the stress of filling appointments, because the front desk deal with this on a daily basis. It's the worst nightmare. They don't want to deal with me when I have an empty chair. So by having these systems, it makes their life so easy. And it's actually, they use like we have a group chat, and the front desk have a group chat. I got a cancellation. And they actually say, okay, don't send a group text because I have someone want to come in. They text that person first. 2 minutes, they don't respond. They send a group text. The problem solved in 5 minutes. That's a completely different game than what we used to have 5 years ago.
Love that. Love that. Thank you very much. So the reality is all of this really starts with visibility as well. The best practices are tracking their patterns, knowing which appointment types and time slots are most at risk so they can plan ahead instead of constantly reacting.
So actually, this help us when we look at the data is same day cancellation. We had a 50-50% chance of filling that spot, you know, and now we are more of 85% chance. And that's significant amount of money and revenue to the office when you're confident. And also, like, there's something that you cannot put a price tag on it, which is lowering the level of stress in the office during day-to-day activity. Because, if you have bills to pay, but you don't want your team to run with their head chopped off. They want to come in, they're going to work hard, but if you can lower the level of stress, again, there is no price tag that you can put on it. And using the technology can absolutely make this an easy and automated process.
Yeah, and that's something that we've prides ourselves on, right? Is that we can keep staff members happy, help with staff retention, turnover, things like that with the ease of use of our tools, right? So for things like same day cancellations, we can start with something like a text first approach, right? There is an identifiable list that we're able to see, as soon as a cancellation is logged in DSN, Weave is able to pick that up and then communicate on behalf of that opening there. So we're able to fill the chair pretty quickly, not having to scramble, having an easy list to get to, an easy way to communicate through multiple methods as well. So, typically we can start with a text message. If we're not getting that filled quickly, we could, revert to placing a phone call or an email, just trying to get that appointment filled. And we are seeing that typically starting with a text first, meeting the patient where they are, and then if we need to divert to other methods, we're able to fill slots typically within 2 hours utilizing Weave. Dr. Bakuri, it sounds like you're able to fill them a little quicker sometimes, which is great. So,
and it's easy because I have two people actually working remotely. They're in different states. They're not even in Pennsylvania. So by having that group chat on Weave, the minute there's a cancellation, everybody knows about it. So I don't have to call the person who's offsite to tell them, hey, there's a cancellation. Can we start working on it? Text message go on the Weave group chat, and everybody knows about it. And these people that sits work in their house remotely, they're able to, just like send these messages and start working on it the minute it happens. So all these factors, can definitely help eliminating the no shows and reducing the stress.
Yeah, and that's also the beauty of DSN Cloud and moving to the cloud there. Also with Weave and its flexibility to also meet staff members where they are. You can have employees that are remote if you need to, and they'd still have full access to everything as if they're sitting in office and be able to be additional staff members without actually having to be sitting in the office. So that's huge.
It's a I think personally that's going to be the way that's going to shape the dental practices, because in dental practices, let's face it, there's a lot of our population are older and retired, and sometimes coming to the dentist for like a teeth cleaning is the highlight of their day. So when they finish that teeth cleaning appointment, they would love to go to the front desk and show them the pictures where they took their grandkids to Orlando, to Disneyland, and the phone is ringing and ringing, and now someone canceled and someone has to fill it. So by having remote employees that don't have to deal with this, they can jump on this assignment and address it and fix it in no time.
Leaving the patient care to the people in the office. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Love that. Okay, on to slide 4. So, cut documentation time in half. You briefly mentioned DSN Cloud there, Cassidy, and it leads me to talking about charting. So, charting is one of the biggest time drains in any specialty practice. I had a conversation with a doctor yesterday who said it's the bane of his existence. Hope that resonates with some on the call. But most doctors and assistants are spending time before or after patients finishing notes. It's tedious, it's inconsistent, and over time it becomes one of the biggest contributors to burnout. So the big buzzword at the moment is AI. AI assisted documentation. It's really going to change that, and it's something that's available on the cloud now. Instead of writing your notes from scratch after every consult or using templates, manually typing, the AI listens during the clinical conversation and builds out that note in real time. And to build on what you were saying about maybe having someone who likes a chat in the office, Dr. Bakuri, the cool thing is it doesn't matter whether you talk about kids, family, weather, all of that gets omitted and only pulls in the relevant clinical information. So really streamlining this process so the doctor can quickly review it, make any edits, approve it, and move on. So notes are done same day, they're structured, and they're complete. And that matters for two reasons. So one, your doctors and assistants get their time back, so you can see more patients. And when your team isn't buried in charting, you actually have the bandwidth to stay on top of the schedule, work the wait list, follow up on cancellations, and fill gaps. The stuff that we've really just talked about. So
And
on to
that's
number
and
5.
that
Go ahead,
Go ahead.
Dr. Curry.
And that's what I like about allocating the business of subspecialty. Like, let Weave deal with the communication, let them deal with that, let DSN deal with the infrastructure, let them, deal with the backbones. And this way you have the best of the two worlds. It's like us specialists, we would love to do the subspecialty part and let the restorative doctors does their part. So this is the kind of integration that I see between Weave and DSN.
Love that. Thank you so much.
All right. Okay, so it is super easy to focus kind of on the immediate schedule, keeping it full, make sure that we're not having any no-shows, things like that, right? But how do we make sure that patients that could potentially see us more aren't just seeing us for one visit and then they disappear, right? Utilizing a great tech stack can help mitigate, patients that just disappear, don't ever come back in, potentially losing revenue there. So here Weave has the ability to follow up post-op, right? So after the appointment has finished up, we're able to follow up, check on the patient, see how they're feeling, see how they're doing, send aftercare instructions, things like that, right? So we're maintaining a good rapport, good word of mouth with these patients, and hoping, that they'll see us again. Um, we also will be able to do specific things like the routine recall. So something like a perio maintenance or imaging that's coming up, something that they maybe need to come back in for, some type of annual checkup, depending on specialty. We can make sure that we're reading that information from DSN, and then we're also able to, proactively outreach in an automated way. And then reactivation. So if it is somebody, that maybe hasn't been seen for a while, but we think we maybe could get them in for a specific type of appointment or treatment, we can do automated reactivation campaigns, reach out to them again where they're at, text, email, voice, and try to get them back into the office. I'll let Johnny elaborate on the last part here, which is kind of the case acceptance, payment plans within DSN, things like that for post-appointment. But again, we can utilize the automated reminders and things like that through Weave to make sure that we're keeping patients coming back.
Perfect. Yeah. Just a quick note on the case acceptance. A lot of lost production we find isn't just from the no-shows. It is from patients who don't say yes for the treatment plan. So usually it's one of the three things: they didn't understand it, they didn't know the cost, or nobody followed up. So to help with this, you can do a couple of quick, easy things like, show them the X-ray instead of explaining it. Give them a clear out-of-pocket number in the chair instead of "we'll let you know." And if they walked out undecided, follow up. Every unsold case is a empty slot that could have been filled.
We actually record videos of we just show the patients, like sometimes, because there's a lot of terminology when you explain to patients. So we have, 50-inch TVs every room. And then I grab the phone, I film a small video. I explain to the patient, this is what we talked about, this is what we want to do, this is what we want to address. Do you mind if I send you this video to yourself? And they said, yeah. Like, I haven't met anyone that said, no, I don't want to have the video. And we send it to them. And sometimes there is a lot of factors. They forget about it. You can remind them, or they want to go home and discuss it with their significant others. And sometimes they are not the decision maker inside the house. Sometimes, younger, patients, that's their parents are still paying for treatment, but they want to have more clarification. So instead of having a visit where one of the parents come in, or the husband or the wife come in to revisit the treatment plan, you have a 1-minute video that explains it all.
Awesome.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay. So a little bit earlier, it was actually on point 4, Dr. Bakuri had said, let's leave kind of the clinical management type things to DSN. And then, Weave's good at the communication part. Let's leave what's good here and what's good here. So one point here is to think of it as one system. DSN does specialize in the management clinical side, and Weave specializes more in the communication, but we don't have to be looked at as two separate things, right? We work together really well because we integrate really well. And we can use the strengths of both DSN and Weave in conjunction with each other with a lot of the automated workflows. So essentially, your schedule data comes over to Weave from DSN. We're able to act upon that, right? The patient data comes over to Weave from DSN. We're able to answer a phone call and be proactive in the conversation because we know some context around it. We also can have them side by side on the same screen. And so they're not really two silos anymore. They can work together really well for high performing offices. So Dr. Bakuri, anything you'd like to add? I know you already kind of talked about this, but anything that you would like to add in terms of, your staff satisfaction with the two platforms that are working together seamlessly. Also, the good things of this one, good things of this one, how they kind of work together as
Yeah.
one.
The DSN has really ease of use. When I first become the owner of the practice, you know, like the idea of change. So I was like, okay, I brought different operating systems to do demo for us. And quite honestly, DSN was the smoothest, the easiest one. So we decided that this is what we want to stick with. And they're very friendly, very easy to approach. And I was very happy when they start teaming up with Weave because I feel that both teams shares the same values. It is customer first and customer oriented. And I think as a user, this will make a huge difference for you when you start seeing like you're putting so much stress on the team, you're not achieving a lot of your goals just because of anything, technology utilization, anything that you can have a non-human do, you should not hesitate to jump into this. It's cheaper, it's more predictable. You don't have to worry about hurting the feeling of Weave software by sending 200 text messages in 1 second. You don't have to worry about hurting the feeling of DSN by doing voice activated charting, automated charting with the hygienist. So you don't have to have a hygiene assistant or allocate one of your assistants to go chart with the hygienist, or the hygienist to slam the door when she was leaving because no one was assisting her to chart today. All these things, again, I'm going to go back to the same point. Revenue is one thing, the toxicity and the environment in the office is another thing. You cannot put a price tag for that. There is a peace of mind tax, and that's the subscription that you're going to pay monthly. And I'm happy to pay it because it makes my life way easier. And I would like to thank both parties for the kind invitation.
Thank you for making time for it.
Thank you. Great to hear. All right, Dr. Bakuri, this is your moment. These are the results from your practice after implementing all 6 of the strategies that we just went through. You're seeing your no-show rate, down 35%. Your same-day fill rate went from 60 to 85+%. Your documentation, you're saving 5 hours, and then your production has improved by $25,000 a month. Elaborate on that. How does make you feel when you see these numbers and you see how implementing a tech strategy has worked for you?
It actually helps a lot to the extent that I currently start practicing 3 days a week. I have two doctors that work in the practice. They also work 3 days a week each. And now when I do a lot of lecturing and traveling, and before I have to call and see how is the day going and look at it now, I can literally log in the computer and I see exactly how is the operation going. And by automating this, I don't have to depend on anyone. The numbers can tell me, and the numbers don't have feelings. So when you bring it up to the staff, if there's something that doesn't work, you can show them the data, and that helps solve the problem instead of going to them and say, well, so and so told me that we are not filling the schedule really well. And it's going to go through subjective feelings. Numbers don't have feelings and they don't lie. And it helps you a lot. And I'm very happy to see these numbers on the screen.
Love to hear it.
Thank you so much. Okay, so 3 things to remember from today. So, first of all, you don't have to implement all 6 strategies at once. First, you want to start with one that will move the needle fastest, which for most practices is multi-channel confirmations. Then, second, once that foundation is solid, layer in cancellation recovery and automated recalls. Thirdly, might take a little bit longer to set up, but look into automated clinical notes with AI. It really is the future, and it's going to be giving back a lot of time to practices. And so often we hear the limiting factor on production is time. So getting it back is worth its weight in gold. So, it's not a long implementation cycle. Most practices we work with see measurable improvements within 30 days. So if you're listening to this and think, yeah, this sounds like a lot like my day to day, and it's probably worth a quick conversation. Every office is a little different, so these conversations are really about understanding your current workflow and seeing where tools like Weave and DSN can actually make a measurable impact. So if it makes sense, feel free to book some time with DSN, with Weave. We're both happy to walk you through it together. And that wraps things up. We're going to open it to the floor. If anyone has any questions, thoughts, feelings, feel free to fire away and we can answer them. And if we don't have time, we can follow up with some email answers on anything.
Well, please feel free to reach out to me also if you guys have any questions. Um, Usually Instagram is the way that a lot of people ask questions. My Instagram is very simple. It's S Bakuri, S and my last name Bakuri, and I will be happy to answer any questions. Sometimes you go home and you thought about a question you wish you asked. I'll be happy to help you. I think this will definitely significantly impact your life. I never thought of start using Weave. I was walking in LVI giving a lecture in Vegas. I saw the gentleman. His name is Nathan. Talked to me about Weave. I started we're using them 8 years ago, and it definitely significantly changed my life. And DSN has been very consistent with us, and I am thrilled to see these two parties coming together. And I think it's a perfect time to get the best of the two worlds.
Thank you so much. I think that's a great recap. Yeah, thanks everyone for making the time. And let me see here. So I think that wraps things about up. Any more questions? I can get back to people via email or Cassidy can if it's from the Weave side. Thanks so much, everyone.